Art shapes us, it defines cultures, it tells stories of economic value, but more importantly, it tells or it forms a form of expression for individuals and corporate companies that have different kinds of companies as clients, for advertising agencies, painters, filmmakers, you name it. The creative industry is growing at a very, very high rate. There are numbers being put out every year. Some people say hundreds of billions of dollars, up to $2 trillion.
So yes, there's a lot of numbers that are being thrown around. The reality is none of us, we don't really know how they're being calculated. So what I always say is that the direction of travel is clear because we can see it on the ground. We see that it's exploding, that it's booming, that it's very dynamic. Don't attach yourself too much to the actual number. I don't think we can say with certitude, but it doesn't really matter to me because we can see a lot of examples of growth in our day-to-day lives. We see some, African creatives that are doing very big things, either on the continent or outside. So I think we can certainly be sure that it's growing. We know that there's a global appetite for African culture that has been proven time and time again.
You know, there's a system that is being put in place to produce, distribute, develop talent all across the world. Today, I'm here at Craft Addis Creative Economy and Innovation Festival, being held at Adwa Memorial Museum, because this festival aims to bring African creators and stakeholders of the creative industry to imagine, explore, and discover the future of Africa's creative industry. So stay with us and come, let's see what's going on.
My name is Zalalem Woldemariam, CEO and Chief Creative Director of Zaleman, and also I'm a founder of Craft Addis.
My name is Marie Laura Mugai, and I'm the founder of Restless Global, which is an advisory firm specialized in the creative industries and sports business. And I'm also the author of Creative Cash Flow.
Barafa Gabriel Marcos, and I'm the General Manager of ALX Ethiopia.
Sleshi Girma, State Minister of Tourism.
I'm Sheila Changangu, and I'm the Marketing Director at Visa for East Africa.
Colin Gale, I'm the Group CEO of ACA.
My name is Naima McLean, and I am the VP of the Creative Economy at ALX.
Whether you want to say one thing or the other, the creative industry is growing. But there's a flip side to it. What is that? When you're looking at artists, creators, or the talent in the creative industry, they're not being compensated as much as they deserve. Why is that?
Well, so first of all, let's also make a distinction of what we call a creative professional, because what most people think of when we say this, they think of the actual artist, so the singer, the filmmaker, the fashion designer. But the reality is that this is an entire ecosystem with people who occupy various positions in the business environment to enable these people also to thrive. So there's a lot of different people who are creative operators or creative entrepreneurs working more in the background or in the shadows. So we're talking of this entire ecosystem, right? And I would say, for me, from my vantage point, one of the reasons why perhaps some initiatives are, were intentions, and maybe it starts with a lot of hope and a lot of talent and energy and doesn't pan out, is because we have a widespread lack of business and financial literacy in the creative space. And if you want to set up a business structure that lasts and grow and scale, you do need to understand business and finance at a proficient level. And I'm not saying that creatives need to become business people, but if they are not a business person, they need to recognize that about themselves and surround themselves with business and finance people who are able to put that structure that we were talking about in place so that we've captured the value of the creative output more efficiently and then grow from there.
I believe artists cannot sell their own product. They do need a representative, like an agent. So the reason that the artists are not out in the markets because they have to work on arts and they have to sell, which is two different departments. So that's one of the reasons I believe people don't understand. They have to have a good representative agent to showcase and market their products.
From our experience, there are a couple of challenges that we've been facing. The first one is the infrastructure challenge that we have been having. So in order for us to document different heritage and architectural sites using 3D devices, so the equipment price is very expensive. We can't import it free of tax. So we can't rent it because not so many organizations as well as individuals have those equipment. So the first one is infrastructure challenge. The second one is basically even after investing a substantial amount of time, money, energy in documenting those sites, there is an awareness gap. So the 3D immersive experience is not that big in Ethiopia, and people don't know what we actually is doing, so that is that challenge. And the third one is everybody is doing everything in a silos format. So I'm doing my own thing, the other startups or the other business firms are doing their own thing. So the infrastructure challenge, the awareness gap, as well as doing everything in a silos is one of the biggest challenges that we've been facing. Yeah.
I think there's many reasons, but the main one being infrastructure. There isn't a solid infrastructure that was built to actually protect musicians and give them what they're worth. Another thing would be the basis on which it was built. I think it was built to profit rather investors and the company rather than the artists that are giving the company the output and the revenue that they're receiving.
So in my opinion, this creative economy sometimes doesn't benefit the actual creator or the artist or the fashion designer, that artist on the regular street. And this is because of several things. First of all, it's around how do they see their profession, their talent as a business. If at the first instance they don't see it as a business, the aspect of monetizing it, scaling it, doesn't even feature. And if you can't monetize and scale, then it's not going to really benefit you financially. So that's the first thing. The other aspect is being able to know their rights, being able to fight for what value they actually bring to the table. And what do I mean by this? So your rights in terms of things like contracts, when you do get contracted to deliver your product or service or skill, to a company or any other entity, you have to know how to contract, have to know how to read that, you have to know how to read in between the lines. Don't just gloss over and sign it. You have to really get into the detail and ensure that you're getting value for yourself. And the third thing is, how do you then capture that value? How are your payments getting made? Do you have the platforms? Do you have the partners that are enabling you get your customers be able to pay you, or for you even to make those payments for whether it's your suppliers globally or internationally? And that's where a brand like Visa would come in, where we provide the payment rails to enable you receive money and also make payments for your craft.
Depending on the country, the creative industry allocates for a 0.5 to 7% contribution to the GDP. This means there's a lot of potential where the creative industry can be developed and distributed to garner much audience and then have a greater contribution to the economy.
We know, of course, that the creative industries are very fragmented. We know that it's a lot of individual actors. It's hard to pinpoint where the value is being created.
I think it takes time to build out the whole ecosystem. I think huge investments of companies that come in to the space and to build out the market. It takes a bit of time for that to trickle down to the actual creative.
But are there systems, are there structures to empower the artists, the talent, the filmmakers, the painters, and every, craftsmanship, as we have seen today, to develop their talent where they're financially stable and they can have longevity in their careers? But more importantly, are the systems that are available right now empowering them or exploiting them?
If you want to be exploited, that's a choice. You choose to be exploited, or you choose to take advantage of the opportunity. That's how you want to look at it. You know what I mean? You have music, you can keep it on your hard drive, play it for your friends, see how that gets you, or you can make a movie and play for your friends and see where that gets you. Or you can put it out there and hope it catches a spark and it grows. Know your business, obviously, but you got to be in it to win it. You can't be on the side of it complaining about it.
It depends what you're looking at. And in my perspective, it's mostly empowerment if you know what the system entails and if you know how to handle the system. So I'm not somebody who will say, African creators are being exploited by the big platforms, whether it is Spotify or Netflix or YouTube. No, these platforms have a way of working, which is not anti-African. They just work in their own, market environment. And the reason that African creatives or creators get less money is mostly a reflection of the smallness of the market in terms of advertising, depth and pool. and in terms of GDP and purchasing power. So unfortunately, we operate in environments that are constrained, where purchasing power is low, and so the money that is being generated through these aggregators and platforms is low. But that doesn't mean they are biased against Africa necessarily. It's just the way the system is. So as an African creator, you have to understand that, and you have to play your cards properly as to where you put your work and in what conditions, and how you can think outside of the box to not depend only on these platforms. And then I would add that you have another responsibility is collective power, is to come together with your fellow creatives to advocate for yourself and give a voice to your industry, which too few do on the continent. Because sometimes you can advocate for a better system or a better share of the pie, but you have to do it as a group.
Well, it depends on where in the world, but I think for the most part, there is a lot of exploitation. Because, for example, if we see in the US, we can see that the success rate of any artist is extremely low, but then so many artists get these advanced, and the label obviously produces their stuff, but then they require those advances back. And if the artist is not releasing anything or not making any type of profit, it kind of binds them to a contract that is going to be very difficult to come out of, especially when they're not prioritizing the artist's work or rollout or promotion or even touring.
Artists only focus on their arts, right? So they don't put the value, how much it costs, how much money will it be on the market. So those who are approaching the artist will take an advantage. They can buy it from a cheap and sell it in a big money. So I also advise artists to go outside, look around how much their craft is selling, and do the right decision to sign the good product.
Yeah, definitely, especially when it comes to the investment side. Since, as you know, Ethiopian investment landscape is not big, so different angel investors, after actually understanding what we're doing, have tried to reach us, and they even claimed up to 70% of our own startup. So there is that aspect. And even whenever we're reaching to different architectural firms, hotels, real estates, they will want us to do everything for free, while basically asking to invest our own money, time, and a lot of things. So we've done that for quite some time before we garner the audience that we currently have. But there is definitely that exploitation in terms of investment, in terms of collaboration, in terms of actually wanting us to invest a lot of our resources to document and to give them everything that we have for free.
Yeah, a little bit, there is a little bit. Most of the creative part of productions are not shown like these events, or not shown, or not popular. Mostly the popular investors or the popular majorities are not looking this type of creative sides.
Nowadays, you're hearing a lot of reports saying AI, new technologies are taking over the creative industry, be it painting, be it video editing, be it graphics designing. You can name any creative industry professional that can be replaced by AI. But that's not always the case. I will argue that AI is actually a tool that these creative professionals can use to do their jobs way faster, way cleaner, with just fine-tuning how they prompt it.
So I think a few things have to happen, and I think are beginning to happen. One is recognizing the creative industry as something that that requires structured support. Sometimes we think creativity is kind of a natural endowment. Yes, there's a lot of creativity that is kind of innate, but there's also a lot of things that make the creative ecosystem function, which requires actually proper skilling, training, requires platforms, requires tools. So someone like ALX, this is really where we come in. It's at that part of the ecosystem where we're supporting young people to understand, the tools, to understand some of the means and access that they need to be able to get knowledge in different aspects of the creative industry that make up the system. I think often when we think of the creative industry, our mind immediately goes either to music or art. But there's a lot. It's much bigger than that. But even if you take music, there's a lot of things that go to music. Not just about the singing. There's the production that goes behind it. So I think so. One is ensuring that the structured knowledge transfer, the structured skilling happens. Then I think the second is creating programs where young people are also learning how to monetize this skills and tools that they're using now. Monetization happens in different ways. There are certain structural challenges. For instance, we have in Ethiopia that requires maybe a policy solution in terms of being paid using whether be it foreign currency and so forth. But part of it is also helping people understand how do you monetize, what are the different avenues of monetization. Now, I think, and then also is helping young people work with big houses like KANA itself, where the actual work of the industry, even if it's within a media context, happens. So it's also just pairing young people with those that are already doing something in the industry so that they can understand what needs to be done.
Particularly if we're talking about AI, I think AI has leveled the playing field. Everyone has access to it. If you have access to a smartphone, you have access to a computer, you have access to the internet, which not a lot of people, I'm not saying everyone does. But if you do, all the answers are there. It's not a big secret that you couldn't access. There's not some, secret, mission in the corner that you don't know or you don't have access to. AI will give you the answers to most of it. How to market yourself, how to market your product. You just have to have the imagination and the creativity to make it work for you. Can't be lazy with AI. It's not going to solve all your problems. It's going to make you faster, make you more efficient, right? Make you quicker at your job, right? But it's still, at the end of the day, AI is only going to be driven in our sector by the creative.
I mean, it's different for different sectors, right? So we're talking very general. And I think, one, creators need to know what are the tools best associated with their industry, number one. Number two, don't get lazy in understanding your craft, because AI can only do so much, right? If you want to stand out, if you want to not be generic like all the other AI outputs, then understanding your identity and then using AI to enhance that whatever makes you unique is critical. So looking at the landscape of tools, understanding how it will best serve you as a creator, not just your art or your craft, but your business too. And where you don't have the skills, use AI and the ecosystems around you to support that whole output. So I think it's just about knowing the tools and understanding how to utilize them. And again, that's why you need the ecosystems like ALX to be able to just learn different tools and have an environment that's going to nurture you in that way.
Technology is actually an enabler, and we mustn't fear technology. Our creators, our professionals, our filmmakers mustn't be afraid of technology. They must actually lean into technology, because technology is what will actually enable us to scale. And how will it enable us to scale? Sitting here in a city like Addis, I could decide that I don't want to do technology and I will just sell to the market that's around me, my neighborhood and all of that. But the reality is, by embracing technology, getting on, for example, social media, putting your products on an international marketplace will allow you access to global markets. So you as a, content creator, if you embrace technology, you can then be able to showcase your talent, your skills to, markets outside of here. So technology is actually an enabler to this industry, and it must be embraced. AI actually helps us do things a lot faster, a lot sharper, a lot sleeker, and gives us more efficiency. So we must lean into technology.
There is a creative cash flow problem that will be always recurring in the industry. How do we fix that is the question. For instance, an ad agency in Ethiopia will start operation having a huge client 1 year. So year one, they'll do very well. Year two, year three comes where everything is going very well, but at year four, all their big clients drop off. Then what happens? So they have to, realign, recalibrate whatever they're offering their services are, and then try to get it back in the game. But that's not always the case. So there are structures. There is a supply chain narrative that could be put in place where all, creative professionals can put together their efforts to have a conducive environment for creative industry professionals to thrive in, to contribute to their art, get a livelihood, have a sustainable financial status, and then have a greater contribution to the economy.
I think events like this can be a link from the artists to the promoters. You know, I can showcase my watches, but I may not know how to sell it. So if there is some promoter or someone who can understand my watch and make it on the market appealable and sellable, this kind of events will make it happen. I believe such kind of events are important for events.
Countries that are developing like Ethiopia have their own set of problems, be it from, developing their agriculture sector, empowering their education, or improving their health sector provisions. The creative industry was in the backseat for a very long time.
So we now have this new Ministry of Tourism and have developed a new tourism policy. So with this, we tried to evaluate the potentials we have as a nation, much beyond the previous and the known, and which we are very popular with, including the historical sites, national park and wildlife, and cultural diversities. So we tried to see the hidden treasures which were not much invested in, and trying to understand we have the art potential, including the crafts, painting and art galleries, music, culinary art, and so on. So identifying all this and trying to prioritize them, to invest more and promote them, to create more visibility as a touristic destination in the African continent. In the coming 1 month, we will be in Venice, in Italy, in promoting one of the popular Ethiopian artwork, which actually is a painting, and showing it for the coming 6 months for 1.4 million visitors. So we started investing on artworks and trying to consider it as one major component of touristic product. I don't say we have done a lot in the past, but we now put it in our policy and started actually working in the ground.
How can we all work to make the creative industry be better? One is having the understanding that the creative industry is not just about the bottom line. It is actually a sort of a social entrepreneurship for myself, because you have to be passionate true to your art and your craftsmanship, but at the same time create an impact on the way people think, on the way people perceive life, and even communicate with each other. At Craft Addis Festival today, I was able to witness different kinds of creative professionals from different backgrounds sit down, have a conversation, and explore the future of African creatives. What we will ask is, these kinds of events are platforms where different creative industry professionals meet. It could be fashion, it could be filmmaking, it could be music. As I said, different kinds of creative professionals can meet and network, talk, and actually have potential agreements and understandings for partnerships.
First year, first day, it's a lot of people here, a lot of partners. It's really good. I'm glad, because I think there are so many experts here where they can share experience, knowledge. That's why we create this platform, and it looks like it's going in the right direction.
I think it's very vital because first of all, it educates a lot of people in understanding the time it takes to build up artists, to build up everything in the creative space. And it also can bring awareness to investors, to stakeholders, to show that these people are still worth what they're putting out. They're still working human beings, and it is worth for us to reshape our mindsets into actually investing in them what is actually deserved.
Well, one of the plans that we have as Gaze Watches to make our watches international. Yes, we do have a website. They can access us at gazewatches.com, but we also need an event like this to showcase our watches, to tell our story. Since our watches are Gaze watches, Gaze Ethiopian representative, it's a number thing. So it's us to tell to the world what the Gaze means and how the watch represents our culture.
As I've told you, one of the biggest challenges that we've been having was awareness. So the platform like this will actually solve basically a portion of our problem. And what I would recommend is to do it more often. I know it's the first of its kind, and basically doing it more often will actually help us to create more of an awareness and the interaction between ourselves, with the audience, and also with a potential investor so that they can invest on our platform and so that we can actually make the money and create a lot of impact.
The corrective measure, it should be promoting a craft workers like Craft Addis, and also to making B2B connections from the designers to the other part of officials.
You know, I really welcome this initiative from Zeleman. I think it's wonderful. They started very big. I do a lot of these events. This is a very impressive one. I think it puts Ethiopia on the map from the get-go in the creative industries. There's people from other countries that are here, and it's great to be able to connect with them. So that's definitely something that you know, is great. And so these kind of forums, they happen elsewhere on the African continent. But I would say this is a very high level in terms of you know, the execution of it. And also for me, I'm very happy to see Ethiopia takes its position in the creative industries. I've worked in 27 African countries. I work all across the continent. I meet creatives everywhere. And so far we hadn't heard much from the Ethiopian industry. We know of the big artists, but we hadn't heard Ethiopia show up as an industry. Now it's here. So I'm very happy for that.
My career started in a place like this. So that's probably the best example I have. I think collaboration, camaraderie, being able to come together in the space with a common goal or a common subject matter is how you grow, it's how you build community. And that's it. If you're all in 9 different places and there's no community, and craft pulls everyone together. If you're filming TV, you're gaming, it's all the same thing. The only thing that's missing from this is sports. Sports is no different. Sports is the same thing. Basketball doesn't happen without music.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, just how this is a relationship-built ecosystem. We need to know who you're passing the baton on when we're looking at the entire value chain. And so I think platforms like this allow some of those sector-specific industry stakeholders to connect, to build relationships, and to figure out opportunities to work together so that that chain is actually linking. And then it's an opportunity for creators to come in and learn and understand the opportunities that are available to them. So I think platforms like this are absolutely necessary at this stage of development for the creator economy because we still have a lot of work to do. And unless we're talking and building together, forming relationships and you know, industry solutions together, then we won't get to where we want to be. And this type of environment enables us to do so.
Craft Addis is a very important event and which is in line with the national tourism policy where we want to promote art tourism. So this is very important. And the other is Craft Addis is being held in Addis Ababa where we are connected to 150 plus destinations elsewhere. So we believe we are also geographically located in the most important spots close to Middle East and close to Europe. So there is high potential to bring artists and make Addis an art hub. So this is where we want to invest, and we believe the Ministry of Tourism is an ideal partner and to take also the lead with the initiators in the coming year. So we will technically support, financially assist, and be part of this very important event in promoting it here and also promoting it abroad.
So at Visa, we actually believe in the power of small steps. And this is exactly it. So this is the first of its kind in Addis, where, you know, the whole ecosystem surrounding creative arts and the economy around it is coming together. It's brought together government, it's brought together platform owners, it's brought together content creators, artists, filmmakers, and so many. First of all, it's created awareness just about how significant this economy is. And as Visa, we are really proud to be here because we're the glue that brings all of this together. Everybody is in this because of the value, the economy that sits in this space. So we as Visa are very, very proud to be here because we can enable the payments that can then bring in the value to everybody in this ecosystem. And you know what? Ultimately, as Visa, we have a platform called Making It. And Making It is really about, in those small steps that you take in your craft, in your trade, and whatever you do, you're actually taking those small steps to actually make it. So we believe that platforms like this really align with our values and also, our big goal of giving our Gen Z consumers, the future consumers of this economy, the chance to make it.
As we have seen, Craft Addis has brought industry stakeholders, thought leaders, and different stakeholders from the creative industry. And now that we are at the end of the event for the second day, I can tell you and guarantee that this creative platform has created a perfect opportunity for the creative professionals of Africa to come together and determine, not just discover or imagine, determine their future and what they want to do with it. So first, to look at it, the participation of the public sector, especially the Addis Ababa Tourism Commission and the Ministry of Tourism commitment, is a great step forward in creating the legal framework for creative professionals to thrive in this ecosystem. And the private sector creating the investment opportunities for venture capitalists or even domestic investors to come and take part in the creative industry is another milestone we can talk about. So this has been a very, very, educating, insightful stay here at Adwa Memorial Museum. This is Kaleab and I'm signing out. Stay creative.